Hello and welcome. My name is Dennis Routledge-Tizard and I work here at LABASAD. Today we're presenting our masterclass in elevating brands through visual storytelling with Olivier Segers. At the end of the session, there'll be some time for you to ask Olivier questions. You can leave your questions in the chat on the right, or you can turn on your camera and microphone and ask questions directly. So don't be shy. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our school. We're the only exclusively online design school that has a 100% live format. This gives students an in-person experience in an online format. This is how we guarantee such a unique, high-quality learning experience. Here are some key stats about LABASAD. 94% of our students recommend LABASAD. We've had more than 3,000 students study with us. We've had over 250 instructors, and they're all professionals currently working in their field. We've had students from all over the world: Germany, the United States, Spain, Italy, Peru, the United Kingdom, Chile, and more. LABASAD was recently featured in an article on It's Nice That, which you can check out on their website. So what are the benefits of studying at LABASAD? Here are some of them. All our instructors are currently working in their field, and all of them come from around the world. We accompany our students throughout the program, so they're never alone in their experience. Students can access different opportunities, such as masterclasses, workshops, networking, and participation in awards. We're currently offering 3 online masters in English, which are online masters in graphic and digital design, an online masters in graphic design and applied typography, and finally an online masters in UI UX design. All of them start in May 2023. And if you want more information, you can send an email to info@labasad.com. And if you want to know more about us, you can contact us by email, telephone, and on our socials, where you can find projects by the instructors and LABASAD graduates, and other news. And now I introduce you to Olivier Segers, who is the design director at Zipsy and co-director of the online masters in graphic and digital design. Remember, at the end, you can ask any questions you might have about the masterclass in the chat, or by activating your microphone and the camera. Over to you, Olivier.
Hi, everyone. Let me see, share now. There we go. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Yes. Awesome. All right. Thank you guys for showing up. There's 57 people, which is amazing. And today I will talk about elevating brands through visual storytelling. So who am I and what do I actually do? So my name is Olivier Segers, and I will give you a brief masterclass on the history of branding and what you can do to elevate a brand. This is going to be a really brief history of branding, of course. It's only going to be like half an hour. So normally I could speak for days and weeks on branding, but we only have 30 minutes. So, and I will also be co-directing the online master in graphic and digital design here at LABASAD. So I'm a multidisciplinary branding and type designer. I'm originally from Belgium, but I moved with my fiance and my 2 daughters to Cape Town, I think around 8 to 9 months ago. And during my 15 years of experience, I worked with companies, agencies, startups, and individuals all over the world. I'm currently working as design director at Zipsy, which is a fully US-based remote company that supports early stage startup founders and serves as the only ecosystem of an integrated design team. And I've seen branding evolve quite a bit during the last 15 years. And in this masterclass, I want to share that knowledge with you guys. So here's a small summary of what I've been doing as a brand designer. I've been working for 15 years now as a designer, but only for the past, I think, 9 years fully as a brand designer. Now, currently, I work at Sipsy, like I mentioned earlier. Before, I worked at Skin Branding Agency as a senior brand designer. Then today, which is linked to Only Humans and Springbok Agency. Here you have a small overview of some of my work that's been curated on Behance. And here we see what we are going to talk about. So first off, a really small brief history on brand design, what branding is all about. Then the second part, we'll talk about the branding evolution, what brands did, where they are now, and what they are going to do in the future. Then we have my brand list. That's something that I keep in the back of my mind every time I start designing a brand or a rebrand. Then a personal case study review where I talk about the brand list and how we can elevate through visual storytelling. And then at the end, we have our Q&A session where you guys can ask me any question you guys want to ask me. So, as I mentioned earlier, 30 minutes is way too short to really talk about what branding and visual storytelling is all about, right? We will get more in depth on these topics during our course, Online Masters in Graphic and Digital Design at LABASAD. So if you guys are interested, or if you guys, after this masterclass, you are interested, you can definitely hop on the website, LABASAD's website, and you can find more information on our course. So first off, some fun history. Branding isn't something new, totally not something new. It's not even like 500 years old, 1,000 years old, 2,000 years old. No, it is approximately 7,000 years old, right? So archaeologists have found branding elements dating back 7,000 years ago. This, of course, is not, for example, an app design or a typical logo design that you will see nowadays, but it was more to brand their cattle, to brand their house, and to brand ownership. Originally, the word brand comes from brander, or in I think it's called brander in Scandinavia, and it was a burning piece of wood, later described as a torch. Then here we have our little overview. So 5,000 to 1,000 years BC, branding was there to identify products and property. In the 1800s until the 1950s, it was to convey quality and to earn trust. From the 50s to the 60s, it was to differentiate products and earn loyalty. Then from the 70s to the 90s, it was to give the company a personality. One of the brands that's most commonly known for giving a personality to their brand was Apple in the 80s and the 90s, right? So they really did a great job at giving that company, an IT company, of course, some identity. And then now it is actually to make emotional connections. So branding is all about making emotional connections and visual storytelling. It's actually making emotional connections through visual storytelling. So let's just quickly take a look at the last 50 years of branding to see what the hell changed. We're gonna take a look at 4 household brands, household names that we all know of, and why they changed and how they changed. So Burger King, once it started in 1957, it was an overly complex logo, right? Back in those days, they wanted to tell the whole story through just the logo. Then in 69, they upgraded the logo, simplified it quite a bit, so that you have the Burger King typography and the 2 buns at the top and the bottom. In 99, they actually made the logo a bit more complex, right? And then in 2021, they went back to what they had at 69. So big red typography, and then you have your buns at the top and at the bottom. Then, for example, Pepsi Cola in the 40s, they had a really complex logo back in the day. Then in 62, they changed it to clean and clear typography with a bottle cap. In 91, they changed it again. They upgraded their typography from 62, and then they added 2 new elements to the logo. And then in 2008, they simplified it yet again. Then we have Walmart. In 64, when they started, it looked more like a Western movie, Western kind of logo. Then in 68, they added some more details into the logo. In 92, they downgraded. So they simplified the logo quite a bit, and they added a star in the middle. Then in 2008, they did a full rebrand, and they simplified it a lot by adding, by shifting the star and simplifying the star to the right. And then a company that is not that old, but we all know of, is Airbnb. So in 2007, even their name changed, right? In 2007, it was Air Bed and Breakfast. So a big name and a long name. And then in 2009, they changed the colors, typography. In 2013, they did the same thing. They went for a written kind of a word mark. And then in 2014, they changed it again to something that's more simplified.
Olivier, sorry to interrupt. Just
Yeah.
1 second. Could you put your camera on? Is that all right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Brilliant. Thanks. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, okay. Is it on? It is on. Hi,
Yep,
everyone.
we're good to go. Thank you.
No problem. So here you have an overview of a lot of other brands, well-known household brands that do the exact same thing, right? So they started, not all of them, of course, because Nike already had a simple logo, but a lot of them simplified their mark. Then you don't have to answer this, of course, but you can answer. You can remember this question for later on in this masterclass. So can you guys see a common thread when looking at the visual history of these brands? Then we go a tiny bit deeper. So in the 60s, this is an example of design, what it looked like in the 60s. So this abstract style defined the state of popular poster art of the period. Simple geometric shapes were key during this era. So this era I call simplicity, right? There weren't any computers yet, so they were actually confined by what was available at that time. But overall, it was simple. They used simple shapes. They used simple geometric shapes. This is by Sol Bass. If you guys don't know who Sol Bass is, I definitely recommend you guys taking a look, Google him, look at his Wikipedia page. This is one of my favorite all-time brand designers. Then we go to the 70s. So the 70s graphic design saw an evolution in advertising. So typography in the 70s also developed due to the availability of typesetting technology. So as you can see here, they started to experiment with typography. So you could see that a lot of the times during the 70s, there was an evolution when it came to typography and typesetting, and they really experimented with everything, with typography, with imagery, and so on. So this was the experimental phase. So they came out of the simplicity phase in the 60s, and then they start to experiment in the 70s. The experimental phase even went further during the 80s. So graphic design in the 80s marked the early beginnings of the digital revolution, right? And it all started with personal computers, and the sky was the limit. And this is what I call excess. So everyone really at home had their own computer. They could have programs like CorelDRAW. They could have programs like the beginning of Illustrator, Photoshop, and the sky was the limit. So everyone could actually try and become a graphic designer. Then during the 90s, I call this collage, right? So graphic design in the 90s was heavily influenced by the spread of the internet and the birth of websites. So designers really went one step further when it came to typography. You could see in the 70s, they were already experimenting due to typesetting, but during the 90s, they took it to a whole other level. And I thank God that I was not a designer in the 90s, but this is for me personally the less interesting, the least interesting period to be alive as a graphic designer. But that's my personal opinion. And then we came to the 2000s until today, and it seems like we went full circle, right? So simplicity is back. So we started in the 70s with simplicity. Now in the 2000s until now, simplicity is completely back. Is there actually a reason, or is this purely cosmetic? The same thing with, is there a reason? A lot of people think that we are going back to simple design, to simple geometric shapes in our branding, just because of retro, right? Just because, for example, that buffaloes or Levi's jackets are coming back into fashion. It is something completely different, right? It isn't purely cosmetic. It is because the reason why majority of brands seem to go back in time is because their brand needs to be simple enough to work at a smaller scale. So you really have to take that into account when you start designing brands. And why is that? Because 90% of brands will only be seen digitally, right? When you think about the 80s, the 90s, the 70s, even going back to the 40s, when you had a brand, it would be displayed on a billboard, it would be displayed on your television sets, in the cinema, and so on, in the movie theaters. So they didn't really have to make sure that their logo worked at 32 pixels in height. But because of the digital age, it's really important that your logo works at a smaller scale, which means you have to make a logo and a brand that is really, really simple. That's why it seems that we're going back into time. So this is an example that we've made at Zipsy, where I'm working now at the moment as design director. So we had a client called Orange Finance. And as you look on the left-hand side at the mark, we have a circle, which consists out of an O. And then this small piece right here actually resembles the F from the finance word, of course. And this mark represents an orange itself, and it really works well when we scale it down. We even went a tiny bit further and added a small detail in the R, where we have the same components as we use and properties as we use in the mark. So this one is a good example because it works at a smaller scale and it is simple enough. Then on the right-hand side, you can see an example that's not a good example, a bad example. So the mark is overly complex and it won't work at smaller scale. So back in the 80s and the 70s, this wouldn't be an issue because most of the time your logo would have been seen at larger scale. So here we have my matrix that I use every time, and that I use that is in the back of my mind while I design, right? So my main focus will be the logo first. Then we have typography, brand system, imagery, tone of voice. Tone of voice isn't that important all the time. For some projects it is. Then you have your brand colors, and one of the most important things right next to your logo is your concept. So how does this look when we put all of these words right here into action? Then I want to present the case study of the city of Cape Town. This was my first case study that I worked on personally, that I completely fell in love with branding. So this is a rather older case study. I think it's around 6-7 years old, but like that was the first time where I thought of a concept, where I thought that every single piece of the puzzle, and I really enjoyed it. So Cape Town is the place where it all happens. So this is a small summary. The mother city hasn't only got a rich history, but besides that, the combination of city life and nature is unique in this world. So first off, we started with a logo, right? So how do we came up with this logo? So we implemented the 3 mountains that overlook Cape Town. I don't know if any one of you ever went to Cape Town, but it's like you have 3 big mountains that overlook Cape Town, which is Lion's Head, Devil's Peak, and of course, Table Mountain. They are represented by 3 circles, as you can see here. And that's not all. The 3 dots also represent the abundance of beauty and adventures that can be found in this city. It's never ending. For example, art, adventure, nature, food, dining, hiking, and so on. So that is also a part of the concept. Here you can see that we even pushed it a bit further, and we used our 3 dots throughout our whole rebranding. So even on signs, when you have your arrows, we made sure that the arrows consist out of 3 dots. Here as well. And for example, what could it look like when you are using public transport? So it didn't only stop at the logo. So we first off, for the overarching logo of the city of Cape Town, we have our 3 dots, but Cape Town consists out of a lot of districts. So we thought of a idea to make sure that all of these Cape Townian districts have their own separate branding, but when you look at it, you can feel that it's still one big family, right? So for this, we use a hybrid logo. So we had our 3 dots, and then we changed 1 dot specifically for each Cape Townian district. So for example, Blauberg, we do an abstract mountain. For the Atlantic seaboard, we have a sail, and so on. Here you can see that we also use these Cape Townian district marks in our photography. Here as well, for example, here we have a wine lovers book that we have, and then we use that specific color scheme that is linked to that district. Here as well, if you have your community workers, they will have their business cards that are personalized with a Cape Townian district logo, a hybrid logo, and their colors. Excuse me. Yeah, this is actually a fun little detail. So when I started working on this, I never visited Cape Town before. So I worked on this without ever stepping a foot into Cape Town. And then afterwards, it was clear that there were no trams. So that was my mistake. But yeah, we can use these colors on public transportation. For example, this tram or bus, for example, can drive through, let's say, 3 districts. Then we make sure that these 3 districts are represented on the public transport. Here as well, while walking, for example, you will see by looking at the street signs or flags or just the signs that you are in a certain district because of the hybrid logo right here, your city of Cape Town right here, and the color scheme. It doesn't stop there. So we even pushed it a bit further and started working on iconography as well. So we started off, our base will always consist out of our circles. So we made sure that we use 2 circles, and then in motion, it is now we are actually presenting a PDF, but normally this would be animated, so that we start off with 3 circles, 2 white ones, 1 red one, and then the red one in animation forms the line art right here, the iconography. Here as well, as you can see, for example, the street signs, each district has their own color, their own branded logo right here. So yeah, that's it for the case study that I wanted to present to you guys. So overall, this is the matrix, my scheme that I always have in the back of my mind. So at the top, we have our logo. Then we have our typography, our brand system, our imagery, our tone of voice, our brand colors, and then our concept. So for me, this was the first time that I actually understood what it was to create a branding that is lasting. And it will always be dear to my heart, this one, especially the concept part. And when you make sure that everything is done right, the typography, brand system, imagery, concept, brand color, tone of voice, and your logo, then you will have a good visual storytelling. So concept is key. That's the most important thing when it comes to branding. Try to tell a story with your brand. Don't just show a logo, but just try and take the viewers through a book. Just tell a story with what you're wanting to show. Then, for example, this is something that I worked on for Skin Branding Agency. It is where I was working at. That's a company, a branding agency that I was working on while I was still living in Belgium as a senior brand designer. The idea here is Roxer is a flooring and walling company. So they have a click system where you can buy floors and tiles, and it's as easy as just clicking it together. So that's why we came up with the R right here. And then as well, rocks is on the floor, so it's horizontally. And then Xer right here is vertically. So this represents walls, this represents floors. So it can be as simple as that. For example, you can just use it horizontally, but you can also use this lookup right here. Then the last case that I just want to briefly discuss is Jolie, that was also created while working at Skin Branding Agency. It doesn't need to be as complex as the City of Cape Town rebranding. It can be as simple as this. So this actually represents the tables. Jolie is a indoor and outdoor high-end furniture store, product store, sorry. So you can actually buy furniture that you can also use outside, as you can use it inside with ceramic tops. So the most important thing was just showcasing the ceramic tops on the right hand side, for example. And then it can be as simple as just taking a part of your logo, for example. So let's say we take the eye, for example, we get it off here, and then we have a cutout right here. So it can be as simple as that. Oh, I can't use my arrows, apparently. So let me see. Let me just go back right here. What could a billboard look like? As simple as that. But what the main thing, the main focus right here with this brand was to showcase tabletops, showcase the product, but also the texture of the product itself. What we also chose to do in this with this branding is to never show people interacting with the product. So we always have our product shots, but then we have our imagery of our people is always separate from the product shot. This is also this was mainly the reason for doing this, was to make sure that we could do those things separately, so that once we have, for example, an image of your product, so your table or your chairs or your cabinets, for example, that we don't need to have people there. And then this one is the last one for Jolie. Here as well, we use the cutouts of the logo. Then we are reaching the end of this super small masterclass. So some tips and tricks that really helped me out a lot. So whatever you do, don't be afraid to reach out to fellow designers, right? People you look up to, mentors. For example, your senior designer that you really look up to. Don't be afraid to reach out to ask for guidance. That really helped me out a lot while I was growing as a designer. I'm still growing as a designer, by the way. So, but yeah, just talking to your searching for a mentor, talking to your colleagues, and so on. So you should aim to never be a one-man team. That's my number one thing as well. Just you're always working in a team. Even while I was working, for example, on the City of Cape Town branding, I always surrounded myself with other designers, looked for feedback, and so on. So ask for people or your target group for feedback. And with target group, I mean, if you are, for example, working as on a rebrand or a brand of a, let's say, cosmetic product, and it is focused on a female target group, make sure that you actually go to that target group, a female target group, and ask for their opinion. Don't go to anyone else. So once you feel comfortable being vulnerable, that's a really important one, you'll immediately see a difference in the quality of your work. And my daily inspiration, these are just a couple of agencies that I really look up to: Pentagram, Ragged Edge, Skin Branding Agency, Saffron, Base, especially Bold in Kurpahosk. Those two are Scandinavian branding agencies, and they really have it together when it comes to simplicity and what I talked about during this masterclass. So to end off with, just be curious, be consistent, never stop learning, and challenge yourself. And now it's question time.
Olivier, that was really, 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 really interesting. And there was loads of
Thank
value
you.
packed in there. So we appreciate it. Wow, Juan is already in there with his questions. So like you said, we're going to open up the floor now to questions. I love the enthusiasm. Juan, please ask away.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Olivier, I love your presentation. I'm a designer, but
Thank
more
you.
focused on 3D these days. Designer, but
Thank
more
you.
focused on 3D these days. Your
Mhm.
presentation made me remind me of a catchphrase that a teacher back in college told me, that graphic design is simple. That's why it's complicated. But exactly. But my question for you is, like, what is a common mistake that most designers or people that worked on these branding campaigns do? Like, everybody always wants at the first time to be perfect and have this idea, but there's always a common mistake that everyone does. So in your experience, what will that be?
For me personally, it's making an overly complex logo. That's my number one thing that I see designers, and especially designers that just start, they make that sort of a mistake. And for example, when they showcase a branding that they've been working on, they only showcase the logo, right? So they have, like, let's say 5 mockups, and 4 or 5 mockups are only consists of their logo. So for me personally, it's getting it right when it comes to complexity. But that is also something that's really difficult to get a grip on. It's really difficult to master, because if you go too simple, then it's not really a logo and it's not claimable. So yeah, I think just over complex logos, in my opinion, if that makes sense, Juan.
Totally. But thank you very much. Really love the masterclass.
Thank you.
No, Juan,
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Great question. Just a quick note, by the way, there are no bad questions. Okay, so anything that's crossing your mind, please ask them. Okay. So the question we've got is from Marielena. Sorry about my pronunciation. Is there a standard order for you that you start working with the principles you mentioned, like typography, color, etc.?
I think it all depends. Sometimes when I have a briefing coming from a client, sometimes immediately I have some sort of an idea in which direction I want to go, and sometimes I just go into brand strategy first. So first off, we do a most of the time how I work is we do a brand strategy first with the client, where we take them through a couple of questionnaires. We take them through, for example, a logo sorting exercise. We take them through a word sorting exercise, and then we know exactly what kind of a style they want, and then we just start to sketch. So we never actually start off directly on the computer. Sometimes we do if we have a clear vision of how we want to go, but most of the time we first start to sketch, if that makes sense.
Excellent, Olivia. Thank you so much. And great questions. So we had a couple of people with hands up, but they seem to have gone down. Did anyone want to raise their hand again, that they had it up before? Yes, Georgia.
Hi, first of all, thank you so much. It was super, super interesting.
Thank you.
I was curious about the relationship with the client, because sometimes they have very specific requests in terms of maybe the color or the shape, and you maybe do 3 proposals and they say, let's just mix of everything. So I wanted to, because I've been there, and so I'm very curious to understand what's the best way to maybe educate them, or I mean, try to let them understand that sometimes mixing everything, most of the time mixing everything is not the right way to do it. So I was very curious about the relationship with the client. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for the question. So I'm not gonna say that the relationship with the client is gonna be always perfect. So in my opinion, as a designer, your heart breaks 2 to 3 times each month, right? So you pour in your heart, you do the hard work, and then you just have a couple of clients that just don't get it. So what most of the time, so I think like 40% of the time that I work is making explanation slides, just explaining to the client why we did certain things, our thought process behind certain things, and just keep explaining it to the client. But once you have a concept that's so clear and so waterproof, most of the time, let's say 80% of the time, your clients will actually follow your lead. But then you have to do way more than just design a logo. Then you have to go for your concept. You have to go for your colors. Just don't choose just colors because you like it. Make sure that there's a concept behind it. For example, if you want something that's personal, go for warmer colors. If you want something that's more in, let's say, the banking world, you can embrace a more colder color scheme, and so on. But yeah, I mean, there's always going to be like 10 to 20% of, excuse my French, but shitty clients, if that makes sense.
Excellent,
Absolutely.
Olivier.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question. We've got another one here from Balkan in the chat. Says, will the course also cover branding strategy, defining target audiences, or just about design identity? So I don't know if you could explain a bit more.
Yeah, it will also, like, the majority of our course will actually be about the visual storytelling. How do you create a great brand? How do you, for example, make a great packaging design, your UI, your UX, but there will be a small section on brand strategy. The one thing is, me and the other co-director, Stuart, we're not brand strategists. So that's something that I think if you want to learn a bit more on and focus on brand strategy, there are a lot of online tutorials that you can find, but we will touch base on that during the course, but not the majority of the course. It's going to be like a small lesson during our classes.
Excellent, Olivier. We've got a question here from Alma about the requirements to enter the program. So the best way to get information about the program is to email us at info@labasad.com. And you can speak to one of our student advisors and get more specific information about that. Okay, I hope that answers the question. We've got another question here from Vanessa, who says, how not to fall in the trend of certain designs and stay unique, especially those we see on social media.
Yeah, that's actually a difficult one, right? So the one thing that I've seen a lot of the time now, because I've worked for a lot of Web3 clients now at the moment, so crypto as well, and they tend to go in a certain direction that's really specific, but you know that it's not gonna be everlasting, right? So if you design a logo for Web3 clients, it's not gonna be relevant within a year. So you just have to make sure that you follow the same kind of guides that are in place since the 50s when it comes to simplicity and so on. But then again, the more you simplify a logo, the more you get into a habit of making something that's already existing, right? So if you're a brand designer, it's really difficult to make something unique that's never been done before. And exactly the same with the let's say the Cape Town case. It's just 3 dots, right? So I mean that's already been done, but it's like everything else that surrounds the brand. It's never just the logo, it's everything else as well. But yeah, just steer away from things that are really on trend now at the moment. You can actually do a couple of things that are on trend, but don't just follow the trend, be the trend. That's what I would say. Or try to be the trend, because being the trend is really, really difficult. And I don't know if I was ever a trend, so.
Excellent. Jale has their hand up.
First of all, thank you for the presentation and showing your design. It's absolutely amazing. I have a couple of questions, actually. Give me 1 second. So I was wondering, why did you decide to join the current company that you're in? And why did you decide sorry. I was wondering,
No, please.
why did you decide to join the current company and also join the school?
So the current company, so I was living in Belgium, and my fiance is South African, and we always had the dream to move back to South Africa, or she back to South Africa and me joining with the 2 kids. But yeah, then I needed a remote job. So I was approached by this company to do the rebranding of their previous logo, and I did, and we had a click, me and the design director. And then it started to roll and everything went well. And then after 2 years, they offered me a job as a design director, which was something completely different as a senior brand designer, because there's a lot more possibilities, but also a lot more, how do you say it? Yeah, it was for me, it was a really easy choice, because that meant for me that I would be able to move around and also work with talent throughout the world, because everything was remote. So for example, my the person that I work closest with lives in Thailand, while my web designer lives in Slovakia, for example. So just having that experience is amazing.
Great.
And then the question of LABASAD is, I was approached by a really nice woman named Danielle from LABASAD when she saw my portfolio and asked if I was interested. And here I am.
Great.
We're very happy to have you.
Thank you.
Another question, I'll keep it short. What currently project are you working on? How is the difference from switching what you used to do to doing now? And how can you tell your own currently project? Do you have like a resemblance of what you're teaching?
Yeah, so I can't really talk about, due to privacy rules and stuff, I can't really talk about what I'm working on with at Sipsi now at the moment, but I can definitely see I'm still doing all of the brandings, but I just have a lot of responsibilities now leading a team. So that's something completely different. And just Americans in general, like working for European clients is completely different than working for American clients. So it's just a completely different mindset, and sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative, but yeah.
That's life.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. That's all my current question at the moment.
Thank you.
I was wondering if it was okay to see your portfolio. I'm very interested in it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I'll put it in the chat right here.
Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Thank you so much for answering my
Thank
questions
you.
again.
No,
Thank
Jalia,
you.
thanks to you. We've got one more hand up, and then I'll go back to comments from the chat. So Juan, take it away.
Sorry, I don't want to take over the whole Q&A, but I have another question, and I hope it's not off topic. But a moment ago, that you were talking about how to deal with clients, and there's something I wanted to ask you. Like, for example, most students reach to me asking, "Hey, I got this freelance project with a client, but he's asking my fee, and I don't know how to charge him. I don't know how much should I put in the quote." And these are students that just graduated, and I mean, here back in Mexico, we don't have like classes specialized on how to do quotes, how to charge yourself per hours. You learn that by yourself. But what's the best advice that you can give to someone who just finished university, college, or the masters, and they're going to start doing like design freelance, and they have no clue about how to do a fee, how to do a quote, or how to charge?
Yeah, that's for me. It also depends in what country you live, right? If you, for example, if you live in Mexico, or for example, let me take South Africa for example. Like the people get paid little in South Africa, right? So that all depends in which country you actually reside. And if your client, for example, is, let's say, South African, then I know that I can charge a lot of money. But I also know that if you start working, just started working, then your fees shouldn't be like a lot of money. So first of all, I would say let's just keep the fee a bit low so that you can get some experience, that you can grow your portfolio, but don't undersell yourself as well, because you're not a Fiverr designer, so to speak. So yeah, I think it really depends on where your client lives, where you live, and what you feel comfortable with.
Exactly. I remember for my first render freelance, I only got paid $30, but still,
Yeah,
it was
same,
building experience in the end.
yeah. For me, exactly the same. If I know what I asked for the first 2 years, it was really pathetic, really. But yeah, and once you start to grow, they should actually pay you not for the amount of time that you're working on a project, but the amount of time of experience that you have, right? So if you have, let's say, 20 years of experience, they should pay you for that 20 years of experience, right? It doesn't matter if you create a new branding that you've done in, let's say, 3 days, or let's say 3 weeks. It all depends on what your experience is, how you want to position yourself, and so on.
Cool. I think I should change my numbers right now after 6 years of working.
You
Thank
do
you.
that. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thanks, Juan. We've got not a question, but a lovely comment from Karina here. It just says, I just want to say that I love the presentation, and the passion you show for design is amazing. So there you go, Olivier.
Thank you.
And then Gisela says, I live in the Netherlands, and I noticed that here the trend about brands and graphic design in general is coming back to the 1990s. Oh, so more complex and richer design. Is it something that you noticed? How important is it to follow the trends in graphic design, in your opinion?
So that's the main issue that we have now, and I see the same trend going on with Web3, and all of the crypto craze. So everything is going back to the 90s. So even the bad design, in my opinion. So it's overly complex, but it doesn't work at a smaller scale. So this is one of the examples as of an overly complex logo and a trend that we don't need to follow. right? You can, if you have a brand and you want to do poster design, for example, or you have a big billboard, by all means, go for it. But when it comes to branding and logo in particular, logo design, just let us make sure that you design something that scales well. So it's really finding the thread between being on trend and yeah, just making a good design.
Excellent. Okay, we've got another question from Balkan, who says, how do you check if your logo is original and that you haven't unknowingly stolen it?
I can't really come up with the URL, but you have websites for that where you can upload the your image and then it searches for you. You can also go to Google and then paste in your or drag and drop your image, and then it will search similar images. But then again, because it's best to design with really basic geometric shapes, all of your logos will already have been done, right? So you will definitely come across a logo or a brand that kind of looks like you. Just make sure that you don't do it on purpose. And if it's too close and if it's in the same, let's say, if it's in the same branch, let's say you're making a brand for a cosmetic company and you do a back search of that image and it's also the same image that you find or from the same brand that's also located or working in the cosmetic branch, just make sure that you don't proceed, or you proceed with caution.
Thanks, Olivier. So we've got a question from George who's asking what the requirements are to enter the master's program. Again, if you'd like some more information specifically about admissions, you can contact us at info@labasad.com. And also in the chat, Gemma's just put a link for you to ask for extra information as well. So we'd love to hear from you. Get in touch. Denise says, how or in what way are the EU and the US clients different? Would you elaborate on that?
So the first time I worked for an American client, because I thought like, okay, we speak the same language, we kind of look the same. And yeah, I grew up with Hollywood movies. So I was like, okay, we are the same people, but they are completely the opposite, right? So in Europe, especially in Belgium, we are truly really honest. So if we don't like something, like even if I did a branding or a rebranding for a company and the company didn't like the logo, they would just blunt out say it. So they would tell me like, yeah, that's not my style, I don't like it. But in the States, they will give you 4 or 5 compliments before giving you a negative feedback. So then you're like, okay, do I need to ignore the first 4 or 5 compliments, or what is this all about? So it's really difficult in the beginning to make sure that you get their feedback. So it's really, really difficult. But like I have a book right here. It's called a culture map, the culture map, and it talks about let me see, decoding how people think, lead, and get things done across cultures. So for example, we also have a lot of Japanese clients, and Japanese clients are another opposite. They're a closed book. So you present the logo and you will see no reaction whatsoever. And then 5 minutes after the call ended, they send you an email that they loved it. So that's something. So every culture, every kind of continent has their own way of dealing with feedback. And in the beginning, it's really difficult to work with that.
Thanks, Olivier. That's also one of the really interesting things about the Masters is that it's such a multicultural set of students as well. So you're going to see so many different perspectives on design and all this kind of stuff. So thanks for the answer. Alejandro says, hi, I'm kind of new in design terms and I'm more a motion graphic animator. How do you make sure you follow a same path and style in the whole branding process to get everything connected and making sense? Thank you. Amazing work.
Oh, that's a difficult one. Let me read it. I'm kind of new. How do you make sure you follow a same path and style? So what I always do, like I have the scheme where I talk about your concept, your tone of voice, your brand system, and so on. So what you can actually do um, is sketch it all out, or just what I do most of the time, especially in the beginning when I was a beginner in brand design. So I opened Illustrator, for example. I made a big artboard, and then I just put everything I wanted to show on that artboard. So let's say I wanted a sign, then I wanted a poster. I made a small book cover. Then I did, let's say, some business cards. And then when you zoom out, you have an overall view of your artboard, and then you can start to pick it apart and look at all of the details and just see that you are consistent. But the more you use that kind of a scheme, so in the beginning I had like my matrix right beside me the whole time, but now I'm doing it on automatic pilot. So for me now it's actually embedded in everything that I do. But in the beginning, yeah, you have to be consistent and just put things right next to one another, and that's how it worked for me. But I don't know how it will work for you. I think it's totally personal. And also, again, talking to different designers. If you have a mentor or you trust someone and you want some honest feedback, just keep asking for feedback, because you're not a one-man team. And when you work on something alone, you get tunnel vision. Even so, I have now 15 years of experience. Every week I have tunnel vision. So that's why you should definitely ask for feedback with to you should ask feedback with other designers or from your mentor or so on.
Excellent. Jose says, how do you know when you can stop sketching or searching for an original concept for a brand? Graphic design student here with problems on that ideation phase while making my design.
Then again, it all has to do by surrounding you with people, brainstorming. And I know what you mean, because in the beginning of my career, I was constantly sketching, and I was afraid to actually move over to Illustrator, because then I thought maybe I'm skipping something. But like, it's like surrounding yourself, constantly searching for feedback, and just be honest with yourself. Like, if you're not 100% sure, just keep sketching. And once you have something sketched out that you're 100% sure, you have that eureka moment. Definitely.
Excellent, thanks. Sherry asks, do you think it's possible to start a career in design even if you're a bit older and don't have that much work experience in the field? And you probably get this a lot. How or where to get clients to get the experience? Thank you.
It's never too late to start your career in design. Never, never, never. But the thing is, it is like I told you guys earlier, it's your heart will break a couple of times a month, right? Because you pour your heart into it, and it's like a really difficult career for me personally, but it's also such a rewarding career. So you don't really have that much experience is needed. You just have to work a lot. For example, and you probably get this a lot, how or where to get clients to get the experience, your portfolio. That's your number one thing that you have to work on. Work on your portfolio. Let's say if you look at my portfolio, for example, I posted it in the chat a couple of minutes ago. I think 80% of my portfolio aren't real clients. They're made up, for example. Or I see I'm on a bus and I see a company and I think, oh, that's a cool product, but their design completely sucks. And I'm like, okay, I can do that better, I think. And then I will start doing that. But through my portfolio, I had all of the opportunities that I had until this day was only because of my portfolio. So it doesn't need to, you don't need to know anyone. You just have to work really hard on your portfolio. And once your portfolio is at a certain level, the jobs will come to you. And you just have to make sure that your that your portfolio is on a public space like Behance, like LinkedIn, like Dribble, and then eventually the clients will come to you. But it's not a fast process, right? So it's gonna take some time.
Excellent, Olivia. Thank you. I just wanted to add as well, Sherry, that one of the great things about doing this masters is at the end you're going to get a brand new professional portfolio from all the work that you've done throughout the year. So if you're looking to build that portfolio and get clients, it's a great way to do so. But I think for now, that's going to be it for our questions and answers session. So thanks everyone for your questions. They were excellent. And Olivia,
Yeah, thank
you because this has been a fantastic session. Is there anything you want to say to everyone before we go?
Yeah, really, thank you all for showing up. I thought there was gonna be 15 people, but yeah, you definitely surprised me. And yeah, if you guys, so the one thing that we had with this masters, we only had half an hour. So like I told you guys earlier during the presentation, it's if you want to know more, please sign up for the LABASAD course, and then we can go into detail. For example, we have a whole I think 4-week course purely on branding. Then we have a 4-week course that's purely on graphic design, editorial, UI design, motion. So yeah, you definitely, if you guys are interested and just starting as a designer and you have more questions or you want to grow, this course will definitely help out.
Excellent. Okay, well, yeah, like Olivia said, please get in touch if you're interested. You can contact us at info@labasad.com or go onto the website and ask for information there. But again, Olivia, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for being here. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been useful, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Awesome. Bye, guys.